Hey guys, it's Megan, and today I'm doing the top 14 of 2014. This is like the third time I've tried to do this video, so you better work this time video, okay? Okay. These books are in no particular order. They're just in the order that I picked them up off my shelf. But yeah, let's begin. The first book is Before I Fall by Lauren Oliver. I picked this up at an airport this summer, coming back from DC. So I didn't expect it to be much because it was out of an airport and I didn't really think they were up to date on YA books. But it turned out that it was really good, and it's my first Lauren Oliver book. I know that she has that trilogy out that has Delirium, Pandemonium, and Requiem, however you say that. I was gonna read that trilogy, but I heard it was really bad, so I didn't, and I'm probably not going to because I've heard really bad stuff about it. But she's actually a really good author, and this book kind of flew by. And it was really easy. And actually, is this considered contemporary? I think it would be contemporary. So yeah, maybe Fangirl wasn't my first contemporary book. Maybe this was my first contemporary book this year. About a girl who dies, and she has to relive the day she died over and over until she gets something right. And it was really entertaining, and it was gripping, and when I finished it, I wanted more, but this is a standalone, I believe, so I didn't get more. But pick it up if you haven't read it. You'll probably like it. The second book is Dangerous Creatures by Kami Garcia and Margaret Stohl. And this is the beginning of a companion series to the Castor Chronicles, which has Beautiful Creatures and the other three. I can't remember their names right now. But this doesn't follow Lena. It follows Lena's cousin Ridley and her boyfriend and their adventures. The second book is set to come out, I think, in September of this year. So I'm going to have to snatch that up, because this was really good and it ended in a cliffhanger, like total cliffhanger, so I need to get the next one ASAP. The third book is Dangerous by Shannon Hale. I picked this up in Nashville this summer at an independently owned bookstore, and I'd never read Shannon Hale before, but I'd heard that she was really good with sci-fi. And when I opened this up to read the dust jacket, it talked about NASA and the conspiracy, and that was all I had to hear. I bought it. It turned out to be really good. I definitely want to read more Shannon Hale. If you've read Shannon Hale and you have some suggestions for books that are similar to Dangerous, feel free to leave me those in the comments because I'm super interested. The next book is not a novel, but it is a book of trivia, and it's called The Book of General Ignorance by John Lloyd and John Mitchinson. And I picked this up in DC this summer in a Smithsonian gift shop. It's just full of stuff that you thought was true, but it's really not true, such as the fact that centipedes don't really have 100 legs, but anywhere from like 48 to 96 or something like that. And another one is that camels don't store water in their humps, they store fat. I didn't know that. And it's just a lot of stuff that I thought was true that wasn't really true, and now I get to rub it in people's faces. So if you like to rub stuff in people's faces, this is the book for you. The next book is also a nonfiction book, and it is Death Becomes Them by Alex Strauss. I picked this up at the Bodies in Motion exhibit in Atlanta, Georgia. It was in the gift shop, and I picked it up because it was about unearthing the suicides of the brilliant, the famous, and the notorious, such as Hitler, and on the cover it has Kurt Cobain, Ernest Hemingway, Sigmund Freud, and some other people that I'd heard of that I didn't know killed themselves. So if you're interested in learning about psychology or famous people that were disturbed, I would suggest you read this because I really liked it, and I'm not big on nonfiction at all, and it wasn't boring. It was really easy to read. It talked about Kurt Cobain, it talked about his personal life, and it actually has a picture of his suicide note in here, and a lot of others too, so you should definitely read this if you're into that kind of stuff. The next book is another contemporary, and it's by Rainbow Rowell. It was my first Rainbow Rowell book, and it's called Fangirl. I'd heard really good stuff about this in the booktube community, and I was at Barnes & Noble and saw that it had a really pretty cover, so I had to get it. I read it in a few days, and it was really funny, really witty. The only thing that I didn't like was it seemed that Rainbow Rowell made all the guys sound like hideous. Maybe it was just me, but the main guy, Levi, talked about him having a receding hairline and talked about him being like a rough country boy, and maybe I'm just not into that stuff, but he just didn't sound attractive, and neither did any of the other guys really. But it was a really good book overall, and I would recommend it if you're looking for a Rainbow Rowell book, because a lot of people in the booktube community can relate to Kath because she's a fan fiction writer and she's all about books. So yeah, pick this up if you like contemporary and you haven't read it yet, even though most of you probably have. The next book I'm really behind on. I probably should have read it a year or two ago when everyone else did, but it is Luck's Beginnings by Jennifer L. Armentrout. And it's the first 2 books, it's a bind-up of the first 2 books in the 5-book series. And unfortunately, I have not read past this because the first 2 books are bind up, the 3rd and 4th books are bind up, and then there's a 5th book. And I can only find the first bind up and the 5th book, so I can't find those 3rd and 4th books anywhere. So I'm probably going to have to order those from Amazon, and I will read that as soon as possible because I really love this series so far. It may be my new favorite. Probably not, but it may be. It's going to be really hard to beat Cassandra Clare, but Jennifer L. Armentrout is doing a really good job. The characters are really relatable. Katie is a booktuber, so yeah, that's what actually got me into this. I read this a couple months ago. It's really good, and if you like paranormal romance, because it's about aliens, then I suggest you read this. The next 3 books are actually a trilogy because I could not pick just one, and it is the Infernal Devices trilogy. And ignore my little pieces of paper. Those are for future reference. I just finished reading this a few days ago. I finished Clockwork Princess, and it was great. Like, I was screaming. I was like, oh my gosh, really? Because I've already read the Mortal Instruments, so I know all of their predecessors. Is that the opposite of ancestors? Yeah. So I already know all of their offspring and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and what they've done. Because this is the prequel to the series I read, and it's awesome. Like, Cassandra Clare is such a great author. If you haven't read any of her books, start with these, then read The Mortal Instruments, which is 6 books. And now she has a new series out after that, or it's coming out this year, and it's called The Dark Artifices. And the first book in the next series is going to come out in the fall of this year, so I have to snatch that up too. If you haven't read any Cassandra Clare, seriously, pick this up. And the next book I have is from the Mortal Instruments series, and you probably already know what it is because it was a 2014 release, and possibly the best ending book of a series ever, and it is City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare. It was great. It was like 700 pages, but it was great. And again, if you haven't read any Cassandra Clare, pick some up. Where have you been? Because this is like the best book ever. So pick it up. And the last 3 books, I unfortunately do not have a copy of myself, but I'm going to talk about them anyway. I read 2 of them for school, and one of them just by myself I checked out from the library, so that's why I don't have copies of them. The first one is The Invention of Hugo Cabret. This is more of a middle grade novel, and it's half pictures, half words, so it's like that thick, but I flew through it in like a day, and it was awesome. It reminded me of Harry Potter because it was a like preteen boy, and he was an orphan, and it was really good. Like, you're just gonna have to read it. The next book is The Innocent Man by John Grisham. It was the first John Grisham book I've ever read, and I had to read it for history. And at first I really hated it because it was nonfiction. It was about a guy who was wrongly accused, and it just kind of followed his mental deterioration. I was like, wow, this is really boring. But then I ended up liking it. And John Grisham is a really good writer. It's not really down my alley. Like, I don't think I would want to read just a ton more of his books, but it was really good. I really did like that one book. And I'm about to read The Firm for school as well, so we'll see how that goes. And the last book I have is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. And this was probably the most heart-wrenching book I've ever read. It was about a little girl, Liesel Miminger, living in Nazi Germany. And she lost her mom, her brother, and now she's living with these random people. And I literally can't even tell you anymore because it'll give everything away. But if you have not read that, seriously, go pick it up right now. And then go watch the movie because it's just as good. I cried for like 2 hours. 2 hours. Literally, no joke. Cried for 2 hours. It was so sad. But it was great. And it really makes you appreciate the life you have. So if you haven't read that, I feel like I'm saying that after everything, but if you haven't read it, go pick it up. Those are my top 14 books of 2014. And again, I recommend all of those. So if you're looking for your next read. And tomorrow I'm going to pick up a bookshelf from Lowe's. So I'm going to have a nice little backdrop here so you're not staring at a wall and a really crappy bookshelf behind me. I have that and a 3-shelf bookshelf in the living room, which I share with my mom. And then I have books laying like all over my dresser. So I'm in need of a new bookshelf. So I'm going to pick one up tomorrow, and I'm probably going to put it in the living room, and I'll film in there from now on, most likely. But I just want to give you a better view behind me because I know this is really boring to look at. So in all my videos after this, I'll probably have a new bookshelf. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!